Shelter Chapter 2. An idea came to me during third period. Ashley and I had only one class together, AP History with Mrs. Friedman. She was one of my favorite teachers so far. She was theatrical and enthusiastic. Today she was talking about how well rounded certain historical figures were, begging us to become Renaissance men or women. I hadn't talked to her privately yet. I hadn't talked to any of my teachers outside of class. I kept to myself. That was my way. I know I got new kid stares. One day, a group of girls were giggling in my direction. One came up to me and said, "Can I have your phone number?" Confused, I gave it to her. 5 minutes later, I heard giggling and my phone vibrated. The text read, "My friend thinks you're cute." I didn't respond. After class, I approached Mrs. Friedman. "Ah, Mr. Boliter," Mrs. Freeman said with a smile that lit up her face. "I'm glad to have you in my class." I wasn't sure how to reply to that, so I went with, "Uh, thank you." "I never had your father," she said, "but your uncle was one of my favorite students. You resemble him." My uncle, the great Myron Boliter. I didn't like my uncle and was really tired of hearing how swell he was. My father and my uncle were very close growing up, but then they had a major falling out. For the last 15 years of my dad's life, basically, from the moment I was conceived to the moment he died, the two brothers hadn't spoken. I guess I should forgive Uncle Myron, but I'm not much in the mood. "What can I do for you, Mr. Bolitar?" When some teachers call you Mr. or Ms., it comes across as either patronizing or too formal. Mrs. Freeman hit the right note. "As you probably know," I said slowly, "Ashley Kent has been absent." And so she has. Mrs. Friedman was a short woman, and it took some effort for her to look all the way up at me. "You two are close?" "We're friends." "Oh, come, Mr. Boliter. I may be old, but I see the way you look at her. Even Miss Caldwell's upset she isn't catching your eye." I reddened when she said this. Rachel Caldwell was probably the hottest girl in the school. "Anyway," I said, dragging out the word, "I was thinking maybe I could help her out." "Help her out how?" "I thought maybe I could get her homework and then, pass it on to her." Mrs. Friedman had been cleaning off the blackboard. Most teachers use Smartboard, but as Mrs. Friedman liked to joke, she was old school, literally. She stopped and looked at me. "Did Ashley ask you to get her homework?" "Well, no." "So you just took it upon yourself?" This was a dumb idea. Even if she did give me the homework, where would I bring it? I didn't know where Ashley lived. "Never mind," I said. "Thanks anyway." She put her eraser down. She put down the eraser. "Mr. Boliter," I turned back to her. "Do you know why Ashley Kent had been absent?" My heart started doing a slow thud. "No, ma'am." "But you're worried." I didn't see any point in lying to her. "Yes, ma'am." "She hasn't called you?" "No, she hasn't." Strange. Mrs. Freeman frowned. "All I can tell you is that when I got a note saying that I shouldn't expect Ashley back." "I'm not sure I understand." "That's all I know," Mrs. Freeman said. "I guess she moved away, but—" Her voice trailed off. "But what?" "Never mind, Mr. Boliter." She started wiping her blackboard again. Just be careful." At lunchtime, I waited in line at the cafeteria. I always figured that would be more drama to a high school cafeteria. Yes, it was full of cliques. The jocks here were called Lax Bros, Lacrosse Brothers. They all had long hair, big muscles, and started every sentence with the word "yeah." There was a table for the animes, white kids who think they're Asian. They loved manga comics and video games that matched. The pretty girls weren't so much pretty as skinny with too high heels and expensive clothes. Then there were the gamers, the hipsters, the skaters, the druggies, the geeks, the theater kids. There didn't seem much class warfare here. These kids have been together so long they didn't even really notice. The so called outcasts who sat alone had been sitting alone for so many years that it wasn't so much cruelty as habit. I wasn't sure if that was better or worse. A kid who would definitely fit into the geek camp came up to me with a tray in his hand. His pant cuffs were set at flood level. His sneakers were pure white with no logo. He pushed up his Harry Potter glasses and then lifted his tray in my direction. Hey, you want my spoon? He asked me. I barely used it. I looked at the tray. Barely? Yeah. He raised his tray a little higher so I could see. The spoon sat in his syrupy fruit cup. No, I said, I'm good. You sure? Are they out of spoons or something? Nah, they got plenty. Okay. Then thanks. No, I'm good. He shrugged. Suit yourself. When I finished my lunch, Spoon, that's how I thought of him now, was waiting for me. Where are you going to sit? He asked. Since Ashley had vanished, I'd been eating alone outside. I'm not sure. Spoon started to follow me. You're big and you keep to yourself, like Shrek. Not much to say to that. I could be your donkey, you know. Okay. If I went outside, he'd follow. So I looked for a safe place inside to eat, to sit. Or you're Robin, like Batman and Robin, or Sancho Panza. Panza. You ever read Don Quixote? Me neither, but I saw the musical Man of La Mancha. I love musicals. So does my dad. My mom, not so much. She likes cage fighting, like MMA. That's mixed martial arts. Dad and me, we go to a musical once a month. Do you like musicals? Sure, I said, scanning the cafeteria for a safe haven. My dad's cool like that, taking me to musicals and stuff. We've seen Mamma Mia 3 times. It's awesome. The movie? Not so much. I mean, Pierce Bronson sings like someone had shot him in the throat with an arrow. Dad gets discount tickets because he works here at the school. He's the janitor here. But don't ask him to give you access to the girls' locker room, okay? Because I asked and Dad said no dice. Dad can be strict like that, you know? Yeah, I said, I know. There was nearly an empty table in the so called outcast corner. The only person sitting there was my unappreciative damsel in distress, Emma or Emma. I still haven't learned her name. So, about being your donkey. I'll get back to you, I told Spoon. I hurried over and put my tray next to hers. She had the heavy black makeup thing going on, shoe polish, black hair, black clothes, black boots, pale skin. She was goth or emo or whatever they call that look now. Tattoos covered her forearms. One snaked up her shirt and around her neck. She looked up at me with a face that could not look more sullen without actually being punched. Oh, great, she said. The pity sit. Pity sit? Think about it. I did. I've never heard that one before. Oh, I get it. Like, I pity you for sitting alone, so I sit with you? She rolled her eyes. And here I pegged you for a dumb jock. I'm trying to be a Renaissance man. You have Mrs. Friedman too, I see. She looked to her left and then her right. Where's your preppy girlfriend? I don't know. So from sitting with the prissy pretty girl to sitting with me. Emma shook her head. Talk about a big step down. I was getting tired of thinking of her as Emma. What's your name? Why do you want to know? I heard a kid call you Emma. I heard Mrs. Owens called you em- Emma. She picked up her fork and started playing with her food. I noticed now that she had pierced eyebrows. Ouch. But my real first name is Emma. But everybody calls me Emma. Why? I just wanted to know what to call you. Grudgingly, she said, Emma. Okay, Emma. She played with her food some more. So, what's your deal? I mean, when you're not rescuing the fat girl? Your bitter act, I said. It's a little over the top, you think? I would dial it back. She shrugged. You might be right. So, you're a new kid, right? I am. Where are you from? We've traveled a lot, I said. How about you? She grimaced. I've lived in this town my whole life. Doesn't seem too bad to be too bad. I don't see you fitting in yet. I don't want to fit in. Ema liked that reply. I looked down at my tray. I picked up my spoon and thought of, well, spoon. I shook my head and smiled. What? Ema asked. Nothing. It was weird to think about this, but when my father was my age, he sat in this very cafeteria and ate his lunch. He was young and had his whole life ahead of him. I glanced around the room and wondered where he would have sat, who he would have talked to, if he laughed as easily back then when I have known him. These thoughts became like a giant hand pushing down on my chest. I blinked and I put down the spoon. Hey, you okay? Ema asked. Fine. I thought about the bat lady and what she had said to me. Crazy old bat. Hey, maybe that's where she got that nickname. You don't get that rep for like hers for nothing. You get it for doing crazy things. Like telling a boy who saw his father die in a car crash that the man he missed so much was still alive. I flashed to the day just 8 months ago when we landed in Los Angeles. My father, my mother, and me. My parents wanted to give me a place where I could go to high school and play for a real basketball team and maybe go to college. Nice plans, right? Now my dad was dead and my mother was shattered. Ema, I said. She looked at me warily. Do you know anything about Bat Lady? Ema frowned. When did she When she did, the mascara on her eyes folded up and then spread out like a fan. Now I get it. What? Why you sat here? Ema said. You figured what? The crazy fat girl would know about the crazy old bat lady? What? No. Ema rose with her tray. Just leave me alone, okay? No, wait, you don't understand. I understand fine. You did your good deed. Will you stop that, Ema? She hurried away and took a step. I took a step to follow her and stopped. Two big muscle heads wearing varsity football jackets snickered. One came up on my right and the other on my left. The one on the right, The name stenciled in cursive on his chest was Buck. Slapped me too hard on the shoulder and said, "Looks like you're struck out, huh?" The other muscle kid, stenciled named Troy, laughed at that. "Yeah," Troy said, "struck out with the fat chick." Back to Buck. "Fat and ugly." Troy, "And you struck out." "Dude!" Buck and Troy high fived each other. Then they turned and put their hands up for me to high five. Buck said, "Up top, bro." I frowned. "Don't you guys have a steroid needle that needs a butt check?" Their mouths both formed surprise. "Oh," and pushed past them. Buck called out, "We ain't done with this, dead man." "Yeah," Troy added, "dead man. Totally dead. Dead man." Man, I hope that nickname didn't stick. As I chased after Ema, I saw Mrs. Owens, who was working the cafeteria monitor, moved quickly to cut me off. There was a gleam in her eye. Ms. Owens haven't forgiven me for the team building fiasco. Still, with the painted smile, she got right up in my face and blew her whistle. "We don't run in the cafeteria," she said, "or we get a week's detention. Do I make myself clear?" I looked around me. Buck made a gun with his finger and dropped the hammer. Ema dumped her tray and headed through the door. Mrs. Owens smiled and dared me to run after her. I didn't. Yep, I was making friends fast.